Today, our guest is one of the most prolific restaurateurs of our time. Drew Nieporent has opened dozens of restaurants in his decades-long career, many earning three-star New York Times reviews, many Michelin stars, and he's a founder of Nobu along with Robert De Niro. I've known Drew for a long time. He's always been so incredibly kind, always smiling. He is the embodiment of hospitality. He has a new book called I'm Not Trying to Be Difficult, which I love the name of, Stories from the Restaurant Trenches. Drew, welcome to All on the Table.
Great to be here, and I love what you're doing here. That's why I wanted to be on. So thank you for having me.
Thank you. I'm so happy you're here. I loved this book.
Oh, what's not to love? No,
I couldn't put it down.
thank you. I
No,
appreciate it.
I read it so quickly, and I kept telling my husband Ryan like stories from the book as I was reading, and he said, "I'm going to read it. I'm going to read it." So he's reading it next.
Fantastic.
So congratulations. The title cracks me up. I love it because I think whenever somebody complains in a restaurant, that's usually their opening line.
Yeah.
I'm not trying to be
That's
difficult,
interesting, yeah.
but the steak isn't cooked the way that I like it. Is there a way for somebody to complain nicely? Like what's your recommendation? Because people always say, like, do you say something if something's bad? Do you send it back?
You know, obviously you have to say something. Especially, listen. The good news is that restaurants of today, the vast majority, really execute very well. You know, you really have to dig deep and down to find a really bad restaurant. I think in the story, I do tell the one story where, you know, the woman goes, "This fish isn't fresh." And I was so offended. I went into the walk-in box. I took the whole salmon. We had a whole salmon. And I brought it out to the table and I go, "Well, which part of the salmon do you feel is frozen?" You know? And I would do stuff like that. I really would. But there is, I think politeness. You know, I'm not trying to be difficult. It's not a bad way of voicing a complaint. And listen, if the vast majority of the complaints are valid, like if they've been waiting too long for their food, which is very reasonable, you know, you should listen.
I was in a restaurant just a few weeks ago. I was in Florida and I ordered fish. And normally I just kind of don't say anything if something goes wrong. It was so bad, Drew, that like it was like ammonia. You know, when you know it's it's like off.
Yeah.
Like there was no faking it. And I told the waiter, I said it's off.
Yeah.
And he was so apologetic, brought me something new, but I thought there's no way that I can sit here and fake it through this, because it wasn't like it just didn't taste to my liking.
No,
like,
I understand.
So right now there's this moment that people are having in New York and across the country of nostalgia for the 1990s, for the early 2000s. I think especially here in New York City.
Interesting.
And your restaurants really were
Yeah, that's my era.
Yeah, I mean, like that's your time, and there are restaurants that defined that era, like Tribeca Grill, like, I mean, Nobu.
Of course,
Come on.
94.
So looking back at that era, what was it like? Like, tell us what it was like to be in New York City, opening restaurants then, like the excitement.
Well, first of all, I'm a New York City kid. I actually grew up on 23rd Street, and the neighborhood is called Peter Cooper Village, but Stuyvesant Town, Peter Cooper. Most people know Stuyvesant Town runs from 23rd, where we live, to 14th Street, First Avenue, all the way to the river. And a very middle-class neighborhood, right? And my father worked for the State Liquor Authority licensing restaurants. My mother was an actress, very theatrical, very beautiful. And so I chose the restaurant business because my father would take us to all these incredible restaurants because the owners, they were all immigrants right off the boat. This is the 60s now. They would invite us to the restaurants because my father had a way of maneuvering their application from the bottom of the pile, putting it on the top of the pile. And,
He was the man to know.
He was the man to know. So we ate it in these incredible restaurants, and I loved it. I loved all the food and everything. So from a very early age, I knew that this is what I was going to do. And then I supplemented. I went to Stuyvesant High School here, which is a specialized high school. You have to take an exam to get in. My mother finds out there's a hotel school at Cornell. And I looked at her, I said, "Mom, Cornell's an Ivy League school. I'm like number 500 in the class of 700 at Stuyvesant. I'm not getting into Cornell." But I got in. It began really my ascension to wanting to do all different types of restaurants because I had been exposed to all different types of restaurants. And I worked on these cruise ships when I was 17, 18 years old, which is amazing. And I'd worked at Maxwell's Plum, which was a restaurant that was extraordinary. Warner Leroy owned that on 64th and First, and then opened Tavern on the Green in 1976. So when I'm ready to open my own restaurant, guess what? I have no money. And all these people who had pledged, oh, if you ever want to open a restaurant, call us. When I called, nobody would invest. But I just run the New York Marathon, 1983, and I found this sliver on West Broadway in Tribeca, and it was 1,500 square feet for $1,500 a month. That's $18,000 a year. I could afford that. And I signed the lease, and I found a chef when I was on a trip on the West Coast named David Boulay. Now, Boulay was like, he unfortunately passed away 2 years ago, but Boulay was probably one of the greatest chefs also that ever cooked in America. And so together we opened this restaurant in April of 1985. And 7 weeks later, and we opened it with a 3-course menu, $16, 1/6. And we got 3 stars in the New York Times, which is like the equivalent of winning the lottery without being able to collect the cash. So, it all began. So Montrachet was seminal, and it was very influential. And guess what? It went for 22 years.
Yeah, which is unheard of in the restaurant business.
Is unheard of. So really, get back to your question now. I have this 3-star restaurant. Everyone can go there. Why? Because it's cheap. Back then, you'd actually have to call. So the phone's like ringing off the hook. And then one night, De Niro shows up with his girlfriend. It was a beautiful, vivacious model named Tookie Smith. And Bob's got his back to the room, and Tookie's looking at me, and she goes, Bob wants to know if you'd like to open another restaurant in Tribeca. And I was like, you talking to me? Because there's nobody else here. And so we opened Tribeca in 1990. That's the 90s. And to tremendous acclaim, also packed to the rafters, got a great review. And then it was off to the races. Then my opportunities started to come. I think we probably met in the 90s at East Hampton Point or Della Femina. I think we might have met out in the Hamptons.
We did. The first time I went to Della Femina, first time I went to the Hamptons was 2003.
Oh,
so
well, it couldn't have been then.
I ate at Della Femina. Like, I remember going there. It was still open.
There was a guy named Billy Joe who had his boat in the marina.
Yeah, I think I know him. I can't remember exactly when we met, but I do remember Bill saying, oh, yeah, that's Drew. That's Drew. He started Nobu and Tribeca Grill. And that is what I remember of first meeting you.
Yeah.
I have been in New York over 20 years now, and I've always either lived in Tribeca or the West Village. I've kind of bounced back and forth. And I always have this memory of you, and you talk about it in your book, sitting outside of Tribeca Grill as your office. And whenever I would go walk my dog, I'd always see you sitting there and wave and say hi. And it always looked like you were having a good time.
Can you imagine, like, before cell phones? I would literally snake the phone, to the outside and put a table there and like try to conduct business.
Yes, back when everybody had a landline.
Unbelievable.
So, I did think it was exciting in the book reading about the opening of Tribeca Grill and all the people that were going there. And like, that was like a celebrity haven. And that was the place that everybody wanted to get into. You had gone from your one restaurant, Montrachet, which was small and intimate, to now a bigger space. And that is like, just, of course, Montrachet was super hard to get into, but Tribeca Grill being so big and more of, I would imagine, like a party vibe at that time.
Right.
What was that like? Like, how did it feel?
No, at the beginning, it's Robert De Niro's restaurant, but we also, our partners are Sean Penn, Bill Murray, Mikhail Baryshnikov, Christopher Walken, Ed Harris. I've dropped a few names. And these have been our partners for 35 years. And back then they were well known, but look at who they are today.
Right.
Sean
all
Penn,
icons.
Unbelievable. So Barbara Streisand was going to come in, but she didn't want to put her name on a liquor license. It was a rough place at the beginning because everybody was trying to fight to get in. People would lie about reservations and everything. But I think, part of my talent was I could manage that kind of a thing. And then the one thing I did, which was really smart, which is I had worked at Maxwell's Plum where the bar was in the middle of the restaurant. And when you put a bar in the middle of the restaurant, all the energy comes from there, as long as you have people drinking. So, and then, people are like, well, where am I supposed to sit? Because in a celebrity restaurant, where are you sitting the celebrities? One night I see Tony Danza literally in De Niro's table. But keep in mind, De Niro always wanted to sit in the back. And Tony looks at me, he goes, why are you burying me? At this, you give me a bad table. Because that was the era of, it was the mood, not the food. The table was more important, or where you sat. And you put the bar in the middle of the space, it kind of democratizes the whole space. And so the restaurant ran flawlessly by restaurant standards really for 35 years.
Let's talk about Nobu, obviously one of the most iconic restaurants in the world ever. And Nobu, what I found so interesting reading in your book, because this is something that I think we forget now, Nobu really changed the way that people eat Japanese food in America.
Right.
Because Japanese food had not had this surge of popularity before Nobu.
Well, let me put it to you this way. When we're opening the Tribeca Grill, De Niro goes, oh, I know a chef from California. So, Nobu Matsuisa. I'm like, we're not doing a Japanese restaurant, Bob. So in an act of like really bad casting, he brings Nobu, to be considered to be the chef. Nobu sees the size of Tribeca and he's like, bows. And I saw the friendship, I saw the kinship, and maybe if I find a space, blah, 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 blah.
And he was at Matsuhisa at that point, which is
Matsuhisa.
tiny.
40
Tiny,
seats. 40
yeah.
seats. So there was here's Tribeca on this corner, and literally up the block on the next corner is a breakout Italian restaurant run by this Greek guy. It was the worst place on God's green earth. And they go up, it's at a bankruptcy. I buy the lease for $100,000. And I get on the phone. This is 3 years after we've opened Tribeca Grill. And I go, Nobu, I found the space for us. Oh, I didn't tell you. I made other deal. I'm opening another restaurant in the Park Meridian Hotel. Now, the reason I'm telling you this now is because here's the crazy thing. Nobu said no to the first one. Eventually we did it, obviously. Nobu said no to the second one, which was Nextdoor, literally Nextdoor, which I wanted to call Nobu's Noodles. Now, this is 1993 or 4, something like that. And ramen today is like the most, but there was like no ramen.
Then.
But Nobu didn't want to do Nobu's Noodles. So it was like, call it whatever you want to call it. Nextdoor Nobu. Okay. It's Nextdoor. So he said no to the second one. And then we have this opportunity in London, which of course he said no to. So now today he's worth $300 million. And that might be light. And there's 57 of these things.
It's incredible.
And the rest is history. But the restaurant that he was going to open was called Shin. And it opened. And it opened before we opened. And guess what, Katie? Exactly the exact Matsuhisa menu.
Really?
And I went there because they were going to open before Nobu. And we're going to have the same menu. And I go there and I sit down. And it's very pretty. It's the Park and Meridian Hotel. And they serve me bread and butter. And I was like, oh, this is over. I mean, they don't stand a chance because the mentality, you don't serve bread and butter in a Japanese restaurant.
No.
So life plays itself out very strangely. 94, when we opened Nobu, this is the crazy thing too. My father, who had worked 40 years for the state liquor authority, no liquor license. We opened the restaurant. We don't have the liquor license yet. So when people come in, they say, what Nobu, what does that stand for? And I go, no booze. So it was kind of, but then eventually we got the liquor license, but, and the rest is history. I mean, Nobu is the biggest success of the last 30 years. When they do these roundups, the 50 best, we were always in the 50 best, but
and 3 stars from the time.
But guess what? Tonight we'll do 500 covers.
Yeah.
So in literally 32 years later, it's 32 years now. It's the hottest. It's still hot as can be.
Always good. When you go, it's always consistent. I was at the playground the other day, which is where I spend most of my time, and talking with another parent about Nobu, and we were saying we need to go and take our kids. We think that if we went early, like a 5 o'clock dinner, that we would have fun and that they would enjoy it. But what stuck out to me about one of the Nobu stories that you told was that a lot of these dishes have become ubiquitous across menus in Japanese restaurants now because they've been copied so many times.
Yeah.
But nobody was making miso black cod
Nobody.
before the
Yellowtail
restaurant
jalapeno.
opened. Yeah, the yellowtail jalapeno. You see that on menus everywhere, but that's because of that restaurant.
It is.
Yeah.
Nobu was very influential. One of the main things that I do take credit for is the space where the first Nobu was located, 105 Hudson. I walked in, and David Rockwell had designed the sushi bar all the way in the back. And I go, no, that it can't be in the back. He goes, well, where do you want it? I said, well, right here between these two pillars right in the front. He goes, no, that's the liquor bar. I said, well, do away with the liquor bar. Put the sushi bar there. Well, where are you going to put the liquor bar? We won't have one. What do you mean we won't have a liquor bar? The decision not to have we had a service bar, obviously, but to not have a front bar, all the gawkers. But back then, people weren't eating at the bars like they are now. It's a big thing now. That was a brilliant decision because we traded a liquor bar for a sushi bar. But it was like, boom, you would walk in. And then the other thing that was clever was, because here's Nobu, and literally down the block is Tribeca. So people would walk and say, listen, we don't have a reservation. How long is the wait? Whatever. So, if you have a drink at Tribeca Grill, we'll call you. Can come, so that was our waiting area.
That's a different era. Now they would never call the restaurant to tell you how nice. Okay, if you know me, you know I take my turkey sandwiches very seriously, and I've always been a boar's head person. When I go to my mom's, she'll say to me, I got some boar's head for lunch, and I just know that she means turkey, but we say boar's head. It's what I use at my home too. It's what I trust, and it just consistently tastes better than anything else at the deli counter. So I thought I had my go-to, and then I tried the Friar's Turkey Breast by Boar's Head, and this is officially my new favorite. Boar's Head somehow brings the taste of deep-fried turkey right to the deli, and the first bite really does it. It's so flavorful, perfectly seasoned, and has that rich, almost backyard, just-cooked feel to it. It's juicy, it's carved just right, and it actually has texture and depth, which makes such a difference in a sandwich. I keep it simple, good bread, a little mayo, okay, maybe more than a little, iceberg lettuce, and a slice of juicy tomato. I don't need much else because the turkey completely carries it. It turns a quick lunch at home into something that feels way more special. And if you already love Boar's Head like I do, you're going to flip for the Friar's Turkey Breast. It has that quality you expect, but with a totally new flavor profile that just hits differently. So next time you're at the deli counter, ask for the Friar's Turkey Breast and see what I mean. Visit your local deli and experience the difference Boar's Head makes, and discover the craftsmanship behind every bite at your local Boar's Head deli. Boar's Head, committed to craft since 1905. All right, spring is officially here, and if you're doing a reset anywhere, make it your kitchen. This is the time to go through those cabinets and finally toss those scratched, peeling, mismatched pans that you've been holding on to for way too long. You know what I'm talking about. I started using Hexclad a few years ago, and what I really love is that you don't have to choose between performance and convenience anymore. Non-stick pans are so easy, but normally you can't put them in the dishwasher, you can't put them in the oven, and they wear out so fast. Stainless steel is great for cooking, but cleanup can really be a nightmare. Hexclad somehow gives you both. I can get a really good sear like on salmon or chicken, but nothing sticks, and they're oven safe up to 900 degrees, which is something most nonstick pans just can't do. So I can sear, then transfer to the oven to cook all the way through. Cleanup is genuinely easy. A lot of the time I just wipe them out or I throw them straight in the dishwasher, which is a game changer. They're also super durable. You can use metal utensils. You don't have to baby them, and the handles stay cool, which I really appreciate when I'm cooking a full meal. And guess what? They come with a lifetime warranty. Spring is the perfect time to upgrade your kitchen with cookware that actually works as hard as you do. For a limited time, our listeners get 10% off with our exclusive link. Just head to hexclad.com/Katie Lee. Check them out at hexclad.com/Katie Lee. Make sure to let them know we sent you. Let's cook smarter this spring with Hexclad's revolutionary cookware. What was the most egregious thing somebody ever did trying to get a table?
They would just lie. We used to do this. We only had women who answered phones for whatever reason. Now we have some men, but I said, "Did a man answer the phone like that?" Yeah. That's So then you know that they're lying. So then, but you don't want to embarrass them in front of their guests. So you just walk to the side and say, "Listen, it's like I'd love to take you. You don't have a reservation. Let's do this, and then work it out. Go, whatever. Have a drink and come back." I didn't want to have to prove a point about that. When the opportunity for Nextdoor Nobu availed, because Nextdoor, same building, but it was an art gallery. I thought this is perfect, all the overflow. But then I started thinking, I said, well, we have 3 stars at Nobu. Who's going to want to go to the lesser Nobu? And then guess what? We got 3 stars, Nextdoor Nobu, which is amazing.
I lived on Hubert Street.
Oh, fantastic.
Early 2000s, and I would go to Nobu next door.
There you go.
Yeah, I loved it.
Yeah.
I loved it. Tribeca was so much quieter back then.
Yeah, it was.
It wasn't what it is now.
Yeah,
and
it's still pretty quiet.
It's still quiet, and especially at night, it's quiet.
Yeah,
but it's so much more popular now, and I have to imagine that restaurants like Montrachet, Tribeca Grill, Nobu made the neighborhood what it is today.
I think
because it brought people down there.
We certainly helped
with the connection that your restaurants had to Tribeca, and I think playing a big part in making it the neighborhood that it is. It also played a huge part in bringing the neighborhood back after 9/11.
That's true.
And that part of your story, to me, really touched my heart, reading about everything that you did on that day and the days following to take care of first responders.
Sure.
Tribeca Grill became a hub for the people working to clean up the World Trade Center to be fed.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about what that was like?
At the time, my wife Ann and I, we lived in Ridgewood, New Jersey, and I was going to catch a train, very good train system, to come into the World Trade Center. And so I see that these planes have hit the World Trade Center. It's like 8, 20, 30, something like that. I go, Ann, get me to the train. I got to get in because it's going to be. And at that point, I thought it was an accident, obviously. So I'm on the train, and the train, somebody on the train goes, "Oh, they just hit the Pentagon." I was like, "What's going on?" They stopped the trains in Rutherford, my train, and that was one of the smartest things they did. They stopped all transportation into the city, especially the trains, because the train went to the World Trade Center. I was able to get home, and then when people called me up and they said, "Don't you have food, right?" Yeah. Come on, there's a lot of workers down at the site. Let's do something. Let's feed them. So at the beginning, you would go outside, and on corners you would see cans of food, which is ridiculous because it's in a can. Nobody can eat that food, which it was a nice idea to put our food in cans. But we had like bread and we had food. And so we started making these trips down there. And then my chef, Don Pintabona, had a good connection with the World Yacht, and they would shuttle the food from 23rd Street to the World Financial, which was
on the river. They were putting it on a.
And that's where we fed everybody. They had these incredible cruise ships, and people could go in. It was the weather in September after the 11th was like extraordinary. It was like almost every day was gorgeous. So it was a good respite for the workers. It was the right thing to do. Daniel Boulud, Gray Kuntz, Charlie Palmer, all the great chefs helped us out.
They were all going and cooking on that cruise ship.
So many lessons came out of 9/11, but the goodwill, you're right, the goodwill came back in a huge way.
And I liked reading about how you said people very quickly came back to restaurants and went out to eat because they wanted the city to come back. They wanted the sense of normalcy.
That's it.
And I thought that was really beautiful to read about. And that is one of the things that I do love so much about New York is how resilient people are.
100%.
And, New Yorkers get a reputation for being tough. And I guess I guess we are, but
We're not, it's not so much that we're tough, but we're not that friendly, I think.
yeah,
We used to be friendly.
everybody has a place they're going, I guess. But I think New Yorkers really know how to come together. Like when you think about after Hurricane Sandy,
That's
after COVID, uh, people come back and people do help each other out.
That's true. Yeah, definitely. No
And
question.
restaurants are the place that we gather.
It is.
And especially in New York because you're not going to people's homes as much. You are
Right.
going and meeting friends in a restaurant.
Right.
You touched on you worked at McDonald's when you were young.
Right.
And I loved reading about that and loved that that was kind of like your gateway into restaurants and the efficiency
Yes.
of McDonald's.
Yes.
The efficiency, the consistency, and the lessons that teaches for future. I've always heard, and I agree with, that everybody should have to work in a restaurant at some point in their life
I think so.
to understand what it's like.
Sure.
And I think it is so character building.
Yeah.
What do you think about that? What do you think about young people going out and working in restaurants, the experience that you get to have?
I'll tell you what. I mean, obviously, because I was directed because of my father's, being with the state liquor authority. So I always knew what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. But, people rail against social media. And I think it's like this extraordinary tool. I mean, it's just unbelievable. And now it goes from, chefs or restaurants highlighting their food, which in most cases looks good. That motivates you to maybe want to go to that restaurant. Oh, I like soup dumplings. Look at this place. I didn't know that existed.
Right.
But now there are also, a lot of the chefs talk about the team and, and they show their workers and they sort of exhibit the lifestyle. So I think social media to a large extent has helped to popularize restaurants. Right now, because of our current government, we're in a little bit of a tumultuous moment where there's so much discord. But we'll see what happens. I think New York is strong. If they give Mondani a chance, because I've known all the mayors, de Blasio, they hated him and now I think he's thought fondly. I don't guess. Eric Adams, I knew when he was Brooklyn borough president. He was gone in a whisper. Even Curtis Lee was a friend of mine, from 100 years ago. But I think if they give Mondami a chance, people are just so, what could possibly happen? His first 100 days, he's like under a microscope. But I don't know about you. I think the city's running pretty well.
Yeah,
I think there's
seem
good,
to be going.
there's good morale, and I
Yeah.
like it.
In fact, my husband said to me this morning when we were walking to school to drop our daughter off, he was like, everything seems to be getting better and better. When you look at like post-pandemic, and it's like every year that goes by gets stronger and stronger and better and kind of back to, you say back to where we were, but like, who wants to go back to where we were? I think we all want to be
Keep going
better,
forward. Yeah,
keep going forward and keep pushing on. What do you think, like when you look back at all the restaurants that you've had, the restaurants you've worked in, the restaurants you've opened? I mean, you were part of opening Tavern on the Green, like one of the most iconic places. What do you think makes a good restaurant? Like when you go out, what makes you go, you know what, this is a good place?
Okay, so there's a couple of basic things, but like before anything, restaurants never had money to make a place beautiful. And now, so many of these restaurants are spending a fortune on the decor. And think about it. Sometimes you see a restaurant, you see the way it looks, and you go, oh, I got to come here. Oh, I want to take my friends here. You don't even know who the chef is. You don't know what the prices are. Or sometimes maybe you don't even know what the food is. But you want to go just because the place is so spectacular. So that's a restaurant like Tavern on the Green because it's in the middle of Central Park. Obviously people know what it is. And it either becomes a tourist trap or it's a nice tourist trap because it's in the middle of Central. And then there's a place that's owned by the chef. And the chef's there all the time. And he gets 3 stars, so it's got to be different, got to be great. And people are motivated to go for the food. Those restaurants have become tasting menus now. So now you're at the tyranny of the chef. You have to sit there, you have to sit there for 3 hours or more and, these little doll-sized portions and maybe you don't eat a certain way because we're all idiosyncratic eaters. So even that's difficult. So you can't put everything in one box. Obviously, look, Nobu in his way of communicating goes like this. He goes, good food needs good service. there was a moment in time where like certain prominent chefs were like, they want vegetables. I'll take them off the menu. They ask, you see highlighted on your menu, no substitutions. I even went to a restaurant once. I was on a diet. I've been on diets my whole life. And it was like the very end of lunch. And they were famous for a lamb burger, which of course is served with French fries. Of course. And I could see they were all getting ready for the family meal. And the waitress was very nice. I said, listen, I'm on a diet. Is there any way I can substitute the French fries for like small salad or spinach or whatever? She comes back. She says, listen, I can serve you a small salad. And then I finished her sentence, but you're going to charge me for it. Yes. So, I mean, it's like, and that chef was caught up in something, whatever. Anyway,
I have an idea who it probably was.
Probably. But you know a lot of people, but it just say yes.
I know. What harm is it, right?
This is a new one. Look, I don't want to go out and have a bad experience. So then I usually go out early for lunch where it's not that busy. And invariably, I'm greeted by 3 beautiful ladies who don't know a thing about, what they're doing, except that they know how to lead you from the hostess stand to whatever table they have available. And so what always happens is they always bring me to a table that I just don't like. And there are reasons not to like a certain table. And of course, I'm very fast. I can see the room and I'm like, what about that table? Which is like a great table in a corner, blah, blah, blah. And luckily, they move me, but so don't suffer in silence. So, I mean, look, just a good restaurant. I think here's the most important thing that we can think about. Do your homework. It doesn't it takes me 10 minutes. Go on Yelp. Yelp. Why Yelp? Because Yelp has these ugly photographs that people take, and you can see what the food looks like. A lot of times restaurants don't on their websites put their menu with prices. That's also a bad thing. Mm-hmm. Like Carbone has no prices, So on Yelp, they have photographs of the menu.
Right.
Sometimes
how much it costs.
Yeah, you can see how much it costs.
Good call.
Yeah, and interior shots, even exterior shots. So and then what I do is I look at the reviews, but I don't, I look if it has this many 1-star reviews. It's usually like the hostess was just rude to me when I came in, but the waiter was nice. But sometimes it has this many 1 stars, and you see a pattern of like, I made a reservation on Mother's Day, or I made a reservation on Easter. The holidays are the worst time for restaurants. You're going to get the worst service. Waiters are in a bad mood on those holidays. But the reality is, like, just do your homework. You shouldn't have a bad experience.
Who do you think is getting it right now?
A lot of people. I think a lot of people. Well, I'm 70. I opened Morrissey. I was 29. I'm 70. Daniel Boulud just turned 71. Still, like, I'm Daniel Boulud in Hong Kong on his new balcony, and John George, the Jean George Residences in Florida.
I saw.
And they begin at $6 million targeted to. So, I mean, my comfort is like Eric Repair. He knows who he is. He says it. He says, I don't worry about the presentation. Le Bernardin is like Teflon now. He charges a lot, but he doesn't charge stupid amounts of money. And then, Luke Ostrom and Andrew Carmelini are my next door neighbors. La Conda Verde, Lafayette, Cafe Carmelini. So quite a number of restaurateurs. And here's the thing. The restaurant business, to a large extent, is directly related to Koreans. The Korean population has had the most influence all around the country. In every major city, there's a great Korean restaurant. And here we have Atamix, which also they own Niro and they own Attaboy. And the parks there are the loveliest people. The food is unbelievable. I don't know about you, but I'm a sucker for going to one of these Korean restaurants in the bubbling cauldron of tofu. I love that.
I want to ask you a little speed round.
Yes.
First up, what was your breakfast today?
Okay. I just lost 60 pounds.
You look great.
Thank you. I appreciate you saying that. But so the only thing the doctor said was you have to buy the cereal. I think it's called Kashi.
Oh, yeah.
And almond milk. Now, I've lost weight in the past by not eating anything white. No bread, no pasta, no pizza, no Chinese food, no rice, no potatoes, I'm eating the kasha now for almost a year, and it's incredible. And so I had that, but this morning, if I don't have that, and I didn't have it this morning, it's weird. I had an egg white omelet with some ham and Swiss cheese, and that is delicious.
At a restaurant, would you go for choosing a place with a good vibe or good food?
Food, always.
On a restaurant menu, you'd never order blank.
Brussels sprouts, bro. It's not that I'll eat them.
What's your restaurant kiss of death? Like you go in and a place like does something, you're like, oh, I can't come back.
It's probably if you walk in and someone cops an attitude. Like, it's rare. I don't want to be anonymous. And it's not like, do you know who I am? But at some point I'm like, I do this for a living, so I don't want you to screw me up here. I want to have a good time. So I do it in various ways. It drives my wife crazy.
What are your top 3 restaurant pet peeves?
I think not having salt and pepper on the table, or if you ask for a pepper mill and there's some ground pepper on the table and they say, "Oh, we ground that fresh today." That's BS. Definitely a menu without prices, but I mean, in the old days, they used to give women a menu without prices.
Right.
But online to see, because when I do my homework, I want to know what I'm going to spend.
I can't stand the QR code now for a menu. I want a menu.
Oh, yeah, that's ridiculous.
Oh,
I don't like that either.
It's my least favorite thing.
Getting used to it.
I don't want to get my phone out, though. Like, my point is, like, to be disconnected and to be with the person I'm with and have to, like, sit there on my phone,
Ridiculous.
Uh-huh. Give me a menu.
I have more than 3, but this one, I do not, under any circumstances, like smash burgers.
Really?
And here's the reason why. If I want to eat charcoal, if I want something carbonized beyond recognition, I'm going to order one of those things if I'm hungry. Because McDonald's, it used to be frozen. It used to be that big. It's not that we smashed it or over caramelized it, but, you see these people like, I think it's called 7th Street Burger. And I respect everybody in our business, but it's like, you got to be kidding me. And so I went to the Burger Bash. I know you've been a judge in the years past with Lee Schrager, but Smashburger, everything was a smash.
Yeah, everybody gets on one thing and then that's what they all do. It's like, this person had success with it. It's like the candy shops right now. There's a million candy shops because Bon Bon was popular.
Billy Durney, I'm sure you maybe tried the hometown barbecue in Miami and in New York.
Mm-hmm.
So he does at Park, whatever it's called, Tavern. He does a burger that thick.
Oh, yes.
With a slice of onion.
At Red Hook Tavern.
Red Hook Tavern. He's the best hamburger in New York, but that's if you want a medium rare hamburger.
I like that hamburger. I think
terrific.
that's a great burger. He opened in Sag Harbor too. He has Sag Harbor Tavern now too.
Good. That's good.
And does the same burger.
That's good to know.
Drew, I have loved talking to you. I really, really love your book. I mean,
you.
everybody out there, like, if you like to eat in restaurants, you should read this book.
And I want to put this out to you. I love to go out with you and your husband, and if you want to take the 5-year-old, that's cool too. Because when they reopen 24 Fifth. We'll go to Claudette. We'll go to that place because it's not far from where you are.
I would love to go out to dinner with you.
I think we'll be well taken care of there. And if we're not, no. I would love to. I would love to break bread with you. That would be great.
That would be great. No, this book really is special. It took me back to a different time, a different era in New York that I think a lot of us crave, because it was a time when people were making more connections with each other and not on their phones at a restaurant, not there taking the pictures. And I loved reading about how important it was to get a good review and the excitement of going to pick up the newspaper instead of the immediacy of it being on the phone. Like it was really, really good. And I just enjoyed it thoroughly. Congratulations.
Thanks for having me on.
Thank you so much. And everybody listening, if you enjoyed this, be sure to subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, be sure to subscribe and pick up I'm Not Trying to Be Difficult. Thanks, Drew.